What makes family scapegoating abuse such an insidious form of invisible abuse? The Family Projective Identification Process. And that's what I'll be focusing on in this episode of Beyond Family Scapegoating Abuse. Hi, everyone. My name's Rebecca Mandeville. I'm a psychotherapist, complex trauma professional, and the author of Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed, Help and Hope for Adults in the Family Scapegoat Role. A couple of weeks back, I posted a video from a subscriber question, and it was called, "Does your family know that they are scapegoating you?" And in this video, I discussed the Family Projective Identification Process, and I also spent some time on discussing that process in my book, Rejected, Shamed, and Blamed. So some of you may already be aware of it. This is an unconscious process, and it is the fuel for the family scapegoating behaviors that many of you who come to this channel and subscribe experience. Not all of you who have been scapegoated by your family are a victim of this family projective identification process, because in some cases, the scapegoating is fueled by a narcissistic parent or a dominant sibling or a grandparent, some other relative that has a lot of power and say in the family. Often that can be a wealthy family member that people are aligning themselves with. And in that case, when there's a narcissist or malignant narcissist involved, there may be a family projective identification process going on, but there may not. And the abuse may indeed be conscious and intentional in the case of a malignant narcissist or narcissist being involved. In the family projective identification process, it is an unconscious process. It doesn't mean you're not experiencing abuse. It doesn't mean you don't need to protect yourself from that abuse, but it is indeed an unconscious process. And to be honest, many people have trouble hearing this. They don't like hearing it. If they don't know about family systems, if they're not aware of all the research done for decades on the family identified patient, that's often the child that is in the scapegoat role, adult child as well. If they don't know about the family systems research supporting the existence of the family projective identification process, what that kind of viewer or reader of my various articles will hear is that, oh, the family is doing it on purpose. Why is this therapist saying they're not doing it on purpose? It is intentional. They are abusing me intentionally. How could this therapist be saying it's not intentional? I'm saying this for good reason, because this has been researched on for years and years, going back to the 1970s, possibly earlier. But family systems is not talked about as much these days. And so I think it's important for that knowledge and that research and the findings in family systems be put back out there. And I'm not the only one doing this. I've seen other therapists talking about this on YouTube and in books and articles, which is wonderful. But it's such a critical point for scapegoated adults to understand. If you're not sure there's a narcissist involved with your scapegoating, that indeed you could still be a victim of family scapegoating abuse, because you may be from a highly traumatized family with generations of intergenerational trauma going on, and that is supporting the family projective identification process. I want to go deeper into a couple, and that is the fact of defense mechanisms. This has been proven for decades and decades via research starting with psychoanalytical theory, psychodynamic processes, where defense mechanisms have been identified, including projective identification, which is an unconscious means of pushing away anything that one cannot acknowledge in themselves, including, in Jungian terms, we call the shadow part or the disowned parts of self that are unpalatable, or ego dystonic, does not align with who we imagine ourselves to be and believe ourselves to be. For an example, let's say that I'm someone who lies, but I see that as ego dystonic. I might see other people as a liar, and I might see myself as very virtuous and honest. So that's a very crude example, but projecting out onto someone else something you cannot own in yourself. And that's one of many defense mechanisms that have been identified in psychoanalytical theory and research. And that's definitely at play in the family projective identification process, where the family system as a whole has underlying anxiety, has issues, problems, and trauma that no one's aware of or talking about, and it's being transmitted and projected upon one specific person, often a child in the family or adult child. And in another video, I likened that to being tarred and feathered. If you're an empath child, you're particularly likely to attract that projection. And it's like you have sticky stuff all over you, and those projection feathers are landing on you. And the family is not aware that this is going on because it's an unconscious process. The behaviors you're experiencing can qualify as abuse. Your family would never, ever buy into this idea, nor see their behavior as abusive. And that's why it can be so difficult talking to them about it. Even the best family therapists will have trouble enlightening to this fact because it's too threatening to the family system as a whole to have to face generations of pain and trauma, or personal individual trauma, pain. And then on top of that, having to acknowledge the damage caused to whoever in the family was the recipient of this projection. You need a lot of ego strength for that. And a dysfunctional family member is unlikely to have that kind of ego strength. A dysfunctional family is not going to be open to dialoguing, to talking about her. That's what makes the family dysfunctional. They're generally incapable of having these kinds of conversations about their part in the dysfunction because they're heavily defended and invested for unconscious reasons, including toxic shame, including trauma, intergenerational trauma. And this needs to be understood if we're going to understand how family scapegoating abuse can happen in families where there is not a narcissist involved. And I will continue talking about the family projective identification process, but I hope this filled in some gaps. And if you're getting something out of this channel, take a minute to subscribe and click the thumbs up, let YouTube know you liked the video, and they'll show it on other people's home feeds. And there's people who need to hear this message.